During these times of uncertainty, if there's one thing that we can count on, that's uncertain times, especially when it comes to educating our children. Virtual learning versus in class, parents working, parents trying to figure out schedules for their school children. Needless to say, these are very confusing times for everyone. But have you thought about, if you don't work outside of the home, homeschooling? Let's bring in author Laura Kronen. She's the author of Homeschool Happily. Yes, you can. Laura, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Laura, if there's one thing that's for certain, as I said, it's the uncertainty. Did your book, or was your book inspired by the pandemic? I mean, the timing is almost perfect.
You would think, but I started writing this book before the pandemic hit, and I wanted to just share the experience that I was having with my children. It was such a wonderful experience homeschooling my children. I want to inspire other parents to do the same thing. And then the pandemic hit, and the rug was pulled out from under everyone, and we all started homeschooling. So then at that point, I went into high gear and finished my book so I could get it out in time.
Now, Laura, this sounds incredibly difficult. It sounds time consuming. It sounds labor intensive. I feel like I need a PhD to teach my children. But you tell me, I mean, it's in the title of your book. Yes, you can. Can I really?
Yes, you can. It's not as scary as it sounds. And I think anytime you start anything new, it's always going to be challenging. And no one begins anything as an expert. In order to get good at something, you need to take practice. And with anything, there's going to be a learning curve. And yes, the first few weeks of homeschooling are going to be difficult. My first few weeks that I started homeschooling my children, it was very difficult. I was, had a couple of breakdowns, but had to channel my inner Zen and find my patience, and it just all worked out amazingly. And I understand when parents are saying, I don't have patience to homeschool. I used to think that all the time, but then I thought of all the times that I've had patience when I just gave birth to my children and you were up for 3 months straight, or you had to potty train or do any of these types of things. And I think that the day you become a parent, you also become a teacher, and anybody can really do it when you put your mind to it.
Now, Laura, one of the reasons that so many parents, even if they have the ability, they're hesitant because of the curriculum. I mean, take me for instance. I'm pretty good at science. I'm okay at English, thankfully, given the career path that I chose. But when it comes to math, I mean, forget about it. So, that would immediately frighten me away from it. Having to be an expert in so many things, at least that's what I would think.
Well, that's very valid. And you're right. Many parents are saying, how am I going to teach algebra or physics or chemistry or a foreign language? Like, if you don't know it, how do you teach it? And that definitely went through my mind as well when I first started homeschooling, because math isn't my forte either, by the way. But there are endless resources, including books and classes and videos and different types of extra help that are, by the way, a lot of them are free, and that will help your children to learn everything that they need to know. And there's nothing that your child learns in school right now that isn't accessible to every parent.
Now, you outlined the pros and cons. Give me your top pros and your top cons.
Okay. Number one pro, absolutely, you get to spend more time with your children. There are over 2,100 days or 16,000 hours that your kids are away from you as they go through their schooling process. And you get to reclaim some of those hours back. And I think that gives you the ability to focus on family. And I think that's really what's missing in today's world right now. And I have to also emphasize that the one-on-one instruction is amazing, because you can really gear towards the best interests and passions of your child. So that's my pro. The biggest con, I think, would be finding the time to do it all and not getting derailed when interruptions pop up throughout the day. And I think when you focus, you prioritize your responsibilities, the different things that you have to do, you get and stay organized, and of course remain flexible. When the unexpected arises, you're able to sort of roll with it.
Laura, talk to me about cost. So many families in the South especially are struggling right now because of the pandemic. So many people are laid off. Is this financially feasible? Is this going to cost me an arm and a leg? Does this equate to a private education almost?
No, there are so many free resources that I love that can provide students with all they need to know, especially in the STEM areas. And with a combination of all the videos and books and online research, you can put together a complete curriculum for your child for next to nothing. Now, of course, you can spend money and buy a curriculum in a box, and that can cost hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars sometimes. I've never done that with my children. There's just many avenues you can go, but you absolutely can put together a free education for your child.
Now, big question. Are homeschoolers ready for the world when they're done with homeschooling? Are they ready for college? Can they make that transition easily, or is it a struggle?
Well, I love this question. The answer is yes, absolutely, without a doubt, 100%. A homeschool education can be just as, if not more dynamic than a public or private school education. But just like in high school, homeschool kids can get AP credit, they can do dual enrollment, they can participate in many extracurriculars, and in many instances, they come out ahead of the pack. In fact, studies have shown that homeschool kids perform above the national average on all standardized tests across the board. And that's the kind of opportunity you can afford your child when guiding them along the paths and towards their passions. They also will get the benefit of doing better than sometimes they're in regular schools.
All right, last question here. And something you brought out, I didn't know. Some 3 to 4% of kids are homeschooled now. I didn't know the number was that high. So do you see this as something that, is this a fad that's catching up because of the pandemic, or is this something that really has a foothold and is growing in popularity because of its effectiveness?
Well, since that was written only a few months ago, the number is much higher, believe it or not. There's a surge in homeschooling. Many parents came out of the spring pandemic homeschooling with having homeschooling a different outlook on the entire process. And in many states, homeschool filings are up over 125%. And there was a recent survey done by edchoice.org, and they reported that 15% of families that were interviewed said that they were very likely to switch to homeschooling in the future. And if those numbers stand, that means that there is going to be over 7.5 million more families homeschooling within the next year, which is, I think, a 441% increase. So yes, these numbers are flying right now.
All right, Laura, show me your book. Do you have a copy of it you can show me?
I do. Here, wait.
Of course you do. There it is right there.
Of course I do. What kind of author would I be if I didn't have my book handy? Homeschool Happily. Yes, you can.
All right, this is Laura Kronen, author of Homeschool Happily and homeschool professor herself. Laura, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Darrell. Bye.